Hi, this is Gary and welcome to Fountain Pen Showdown. Today we're going to be looking at two pens from PenBBS. The first one is this. This is the PenBBS 268. This one is a vacuum filler. The second pen is the PenBBS 487. This one, well, it's a magnetic filler, so it's a slightly different filling system. Both of these pens have got a similar nib and they've both got a fine nib. Join me down on the mat and we'll compare the two pens, we'll run them through their paces and we'll see which one comes out on top. So here we are down on the mat. So let's start off with the PenBBS 268. So here it is. So as I said, this pen, vacuum filler. So we've got a rod here down to a vacuum seal here, and to get into it you unscrew this cap, pull it out, push that down. As the plunger goes down it creates a vacuum in here till it gets to the bottom where inside it flares out a little bit, which then allows the vacuum to release and it pulls in the ink. We'll look through the body. So the top finial, it's plastic, it's got a little bit of a dome on the top, very slight there, flares out until it comes to this silverized clip. The clip, very springy, really nice clip, fits well into your pocket there. The cap, we have a slight flare out till we come to the band. On the band we've got PenBBS, the other side the model 268. As part of the band we've got a step down, and it's a gentle gradual step down, so you hardly feel it, to the main body. The main body then, again, it's got a slight gradual tapering until it comes to this cap, which, as I say, the cap will unscrew, pulls out, pulls a piston rod with it, allows you to fill it. Remember, because this is a vacuum filler, whenever you're writing with it, especially for a long session, you need to make sure you've unscrewed this cap a bit, because otherwise you'll starve the feed and you'll starve the nib. If we take off the cap, it reveals the nib. So both nibs on these pens are virtually identical. They're standard PenBBS fine nibs. This one, it may look like it's got a bit of a gold sheen to it, but I believe that's just because of the ink. It's an orange ink. What I love about the on here, on the section here, can you see where you can see the orange of the ink? So the ink fills that whole section, which really looks nice. The bottom of the section, there's a lip. Now, I personally don't like these because when I'm writing, I write with my hand lower down. So my finger's resting on this lip here, and it really feels like it's digging into my finger. Now, that's not just this pen, that's a lot of pens. I've got a similar thing. Slightly concave, and it leads up to these threads. The threads, if you rub your finger on them, they do feel a bit rough, and there's a little bit of a step up to the body. Just going to quickly flick it over so you can see we've got a standard PenBBS plastic feed in there. So what we've got here is we've got this band here and this band here. They're actually both full of the ink at the moment. I like to think of them as little reservoirs, and it's these that are feeding into the section and the nib. Now, one of the issues I've found with this pen, the way that the plunger seal here fits, it looks like it's a really, really tight fit. And what I notice is, as I'm writing, this reservoir will empty out. Even when there's ink here, I know there's no ink at the moment because this pen's nearly empty, but that will not fill up because the seal is blocking the ink from coming down, which means that after about 2 or 3 pages, well, it stops writing. What I then have to do is completely release this cap, pull the plunger out a bit, and then that releases the ink and the ink flows down and back into here. Downside of that, when I push down the plunger to reset it, I push out some ink, and I would reckon on a full fill of this I've lost about 1/4 of it from having to reset that ink. So it's a constant problem that I'm getting with this particular pen. Now, it could just be this pen. What I'm going to do in a couple of days' time, once this has been emptied out, is I'm actually going to strip it down and see if I can shave a little bit off that seal and see if that will then solve that issue with the ink flow. So let's put that to one side and we'll fetch in our PenBBS 487. This pen, just look at it, it's beautiful. I love this corduroy patterning. Now, when I first saw this pen, it was on a website and the background was white and it actually looked like the body of the pen was white. When I got it, the body is actually transparent and the corduroy patterning is on top of that. Now, I thought to myself initially, well, that's a shame, I'd have loved it to be in white. But then once I put my blue ink in here, I don't know if you can see the ink here, but having that demonstrator type view through it so you can actually see the ink adds to the attractiveness. So what I thought was going to be is actually not too bad. If we look at the top, so here we have the finial here, and this metal part, that's actually a magnet, but that's embedded in the plastic. But the pattern, I don't know if you can see, the pattern is still there on the cap, on the top of the cap. We come down from here again until our steel covered clip. This clip, it's very stiff. I'm really struggling to get it to clip. But what it does do is when I put it in my shirt pocket, it goes really nicely over the pocket and really easily. So in a way, it being stiff is good because if I bend over, it's less likely to slip out. So the whole cap, as we can see, it's all got that corduroy pattern on it. That's going down, and that's the same width all the way down. It's nice and smooth. So we come down here, and there's a tiny, gradual little lip. You can feel it, but it's not one which bothers you. And that leads then down into the main body. The main body, again, same width all the way along. And then at the bottom, here we have PenBBS 487, and I think that's Shanghai. I would have to get my magnifying glass out to have a good look. If I take off the cap, so as I said, we've got virtually identical nib. This one, it still looks silver, which leads then into this section. Now the section, that lip, there's not a lip at the bottom. So I actually find this one easier to hold, easier to feel in my hand. Slight concave until we get hit to here. There's a little bit of a lip. You can hardly feel the threads though with your finger. Then, but again, back into that main body. All in all, I really like the look of this pen. So let's do some measurements. I'm going to fetch in my trusty rule. We'll start with the 268. Let's pop that on there. So our length with a cap on is 14.1 centimetres. I'm going to take the cap off. Uncapped is 12.5 centimetres. The pen does post, it posts quite nicely. Posted, it's 15.7 centimetres. So not one of the longest pens, but certainly not one of the shortest I've used. Fetching in the 487. So here, our uncapped is 14.2 centimetres, so about the same size when they're capped. Uncapped, it's about 12.8 centimetres. And then posted, again, posts nicely, nice and firmly, but it's a little bit longer, it's 17 centimetres. Now off camera I have measured all the widths, so for the 268, the body is 0.49 centimetres, the cap is 0.56, and the section, it goes from at the smallest 0.37 up to 42 centimetres. With the 487, well, that comes in at half a centimetre for the body, 0.58 centimetres for the cap, and the section, well, that goes from 0.38 up to 0.47, so slightly wider than the 268. In terms of uncapping, just move the rule out of the way. To uncap for the 268, it takes 3/4 of a turn to uncap that. For the 487, we go 1.5. So 1.5, I personally prefer that extra 3/4 of a turn. I feel that makes it a little bit more secure in my pocket. So our weights, so we'll start with the 268. That comes in 24 grams and the cap 7 grams. With the 487, 30 grams and the cap 11 grams. So yes, that 487, definitely a more weighty pen. Time now for a writing sample. So for this, I'll fetch in my trusty pad. So here we go. This pad is by Oxford and it's using their Optic White paper, which is really nice fountain pen friendly paper. Just going to finish repositioning this paper. We're going to start with that 268. So I have a PenBBS 268. It's a fine nib. The ink, it's Noodler Apache Sunset. I've got to be honest, I love the colour of this ink. And in this pen, especially with the way that the nib is, it looks really nice. So let's go for our wetness test. So I'm just going to immediate. You know, we expect that. We expect it to be wet. Now I'm going to wait 5 seconds. Still wet. 10 seconds. 15 seconds. 20 seconds. And then finally, I'm going to wait for a minute to see if that dries out at all. And even after a minute, it's still got that little bit of wetness to it. Let's try the next pen. So this is the PenBBS 487. So here we go. Same fine nib. The ink in here is Colorverse Supernova. Really nice blue. To me, this isn't what I would call the old school type blues that I was used to when I was young. It's not that school blue, but it's also not got that turquoisey to it. It's just a nice, beautiful blue colour. So again, wetness. You expect that straight off. We go for 5 seconds. Okay, 10 seconds. 15 seconds. Let's just move this up a bit. 20 seconds. Then finally, we're going to leave it for a minute. So after a minute, it's virtually dry. Now I'm just going to reposition the paper up a bit. I'm going to do a final writing sample now with each pen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the microphone down as close as I can to the paper so that you can actually hear the nibs writing. So let's start with that 268. And now the 487. So both pens write very much the same, and as I said, they're virtually the same nib, so you'd expect that. You wouldn't expect to see much of a difference. So moving that pad out of the way, let's fetch both these pens back in. So here we are with the 268. And here we are with the 487. So how would I summarise these? Well, let's start with the looks. The looks. This one, well, it looks nice. It looks all right. It's a demonstrator pen. Nothing really to write home about though. Nothing exciting about it. Best thing I can do, well, let's give that, say, a 7 out of 10. This one here. Really like the look of it. Looks really nice. It's got a beautiful colouring. Really nice looking. This one, well, I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. Writing experience. Well, we've just seen the writing experience. They're the same nib, you expect it to be the same. Writes well, a little bit of feedback, a little bit of noise, but you can certainly see the beautiful texture, the nice line. So I'm going to give them both a 9 out of 10 for this. Next is the ink flow. Well, I've told you about the problems I've had with this. I cannot, in all honesty, give this anything more than a 7. Really can't. Yes, when there's ink there, it writes nice, but it's not consistent because of this vacuum. On the 487, again, beautiful flow, flows really well. The capacity of this barrel is amazing. I've had this ink in here now for 6 weeks, and it's still only about half used it, and I do use it virtually every day. So ink flow for here, really nice. I'm going to give that one a 9 out of 10. So value for money. Well, this is always the interesting one, isn't it? The 268, that cost me 32 Australian dollars. The 487, that was 54 Australian dollars. So, 3/4 again of the price. I have issues with this when I'm writing with it. I have no issues with this one. Problem I do have here is that magnetic filling system. I just cannot get it to work. Could be me, could be an issue with the pen. That's something I need to play around with. So bearing that in mind, bearing the costs, value for money for the 268, well, I'm going to say, well, that'll be a 7 out of 10. Here, for the 487, this one, I think I'll give that an 8 out of 10. So that means I get a total score for the 268 of 7.5 out of 10. For the 487, well, that comes out with 8.5 out of 10. So I hope you've enjoyed the points I've covered. Which one do you think comes out on top? Is it this one, the 268, the one with that vacuum system, but the one where I'm having problems with the plunger? Do you have similar problems if you've got a similar pen? Or is it this one, this gorgeous 487? Look at the colouring. I really do love the colouring on this. Remember, both pens have got the same nib, so they both write very much the same. The big difference then is the lux and it's the filling mechanism. Which filling mechanism do you prefer? Drop me a comment down below. Let me know, do you prefer that vacuum filling or do you prefer the magnetic filling? Or is there another filling system that you would prefer to use? By dropping a comment, we can kickstart the conversation. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on these pens and similar pens. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, give it a thumbs up. The more people that like the video, the more people that comment on the video, then that helps the YouTube algorithm to rank the video and hopefully allow other people to discover it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.